This is the first Tuesday of the month Waupaca City Council meeting.
Everybody to tonight's regular scheduled City Council meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, August 6, 2019, and it is 6:02 p.m. As always, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have clerk open meeting statement. Sandy.
This meeting and all other meetings of the Common Council are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the media in accordance with Wisconsin state statutes, so the citizens may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting.
And roll call, please.
Brian Smith,
Here.
Steve Hackett,
Here.
Lori Chestnut,
Here.
Paul Hagan,
Here.
Alan Keeland,
Here.
Scott Perchatsky,
Here.
Dave Peterson,
Here.
Paul Mayo, Dimitri Martin,
Here.
Mary Fair,
Here.
and Eric Olson.
Here.
9 present, we have a quorum.
The consent agenda, this is in your packet. These are items that we vote on with one motion unless you would like to see one of those items changed or moved to the regular agenda. And you would do that by just asking that it be moved to the regular agenda. And Sandy, do you have just one thing you want to bring up?
Yes, under the consent agenda, letter C, the list of bills were uploaded to the city website.
Okay, so anybody like to see anything moved around? If not, we'd be looking for a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, seconded by Martin, that we approve the consent agenda as printed. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Under the regular agenda, you probably should mention this just in case. Okay.
I was waiting for a memo from Kathy Kaza regarding the START design project for reconstruction of runway 13-31. Was supposed to be uploaded to the city website.
Maybe that's what she's working on, and that's why she's not here.
Probably
Huh?
is.
So if it does come, we'd like to have that added to the agenda. If not, it will be put off till the next meeting. So keep that in mind as you make the motion and approve the item for the regular agenda. Anybody would like to make a motion to approve the regular agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular agenda, excluding what has been mentioned unless information comes in.
Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Olson, that we approve the agenda with that one item. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Under announcements and correspondence, we have a certificate of appreciation to Michael Waupaca for his 10 years of service to the city, and I do have a certificate for him. He works in Public Works. This is awarded to Michael Waupaca in recognition of service to the citizens of Waupaca from 8/1/2009 through 8/1/2019, and it's signed. We have to get Paul Mayo's signature too, but so. Yeah, you can get Paul Mayo's signature.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go. Paul is excused absent. Paul Mayo is an excused absent tonight. He was unable to attend tonight. Okay, and next we have a proclamation for Arts Appreciation Month. And I'm going to go ahead and read this for the record. I know that Anita is here tonight, and you want me to read this first, Anita, and then do you want to speak, or are you just here to?
We're here to hear you speak.
Okay. Do you want to say anything about, why don't you go ahead and say something about the event that you have and what you handed out to the council members? I guess I want you to speak.
Okay, thank you. So Anita Olson, I'm one of the members of the Arts Board, and this is our 13th year to have Arts on the Square. And even though we're not on the square, we continue to call it that. We love being on North Main. And so this is the program. We begin with, on Sunday, coming up Sunday, which is the beginning of Articipation Week. We thought we were clever calling it Articipation Week. And there's something every day that you will be able to read. There's a grid in there for Articipation Week, as well as individual little paragraphs telling you all the things that was planned. Friday night is the big start. We have street dance on the far north Main Street. And we have a phantom art gallery that is in one of the vacant buildings on North Main. So we have lots of art. We have poetry that week. And then Saturday, early in the morning, the artists arrive, put their tents up on the first part of North Main Street, and that is our festival. It includes what we call the underground, because we have moved also down in Rotary Park. So we have young people and their music and their art down there. So please come. It's very a fun time.
Thanks, Anita. We have the proclamation 2019 of Arts Appreciation Month, whereas the Waupaca community has a long history of volunteers coming together to promote the arts and arts appreciation from a few dedicated people working to provide artistic exposure to the community. Our arts community has grown to include a very sizable artist community and many different arts organizations and art-related businesses of all kind, whereas the arts are not only provide entertainment, self-expression, and community building, but also create environments that promote innovation, curiosity, and ingenuity. Exposure to the many different kinds of artistic expression stimulates the development of creative solutions to both new and old challenges and a thinking outside the box mentality that is so vitally needed in today's world. Whereas the many different arts organizations and arts-related businesses in our area enhance our economy, bring in many tourist dollars, and make our community a more vital, robust, and dynamic place to live and visit. Our active arts community is a wonderful human complement to the natural beauty for which we have long been known. Whereas it is more than appropriate to honor and celebrate the dynamic and thriving artistic community with the month of August as Arts Appreciation Month. Now therefore I, Brian Smith, Mayor of City of Waupaca, do hereby proclaim the month of August as Arts Appreciation Month, launching yet another entire year of arts endeavors by our creative community. And we'll place that on file. I know that Marcy is here and so is Steve, so I didn't want to leave both of you out. Do either one of you want to say anything?
Well, I would. I don't know. Steve, do you want to? Well, I would like to just thank the city of Waupaca first and foremost, from the Waupaca Community Arts Board, particularly this summer. It's been a challenge to do our crosswalk painting, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of Justin and Roger and all the people that work at the streets. I think that they've turned out so far to be pretty cool. We've gotten a lot of really great feedback, and we're happy to do it. It's been a lot of work, but it's also been really gratifying to engage so many people that weren't involved before this. So we really thank you guys for letting us do that. We also thank you for closing the streets for the Arts on the Square. We know that that's also not super easy, especially since it's on triathlon weekend and you're doing it on the other side of town. But it really does add a lot to Waupaca to have the Arts Festival. So thank you for supporting all of our efforts all these years and into the future. I would also like to just say that we are part of a network now, and I'm going to reference just this document that was created that you guys all saw maybe last year. How long has it been, Mary? It might be even longer. All right, the Waupaca Cultural Plan. that was created over like a 2-year period. So out of that plan came 4 pretty robust goals for the arts and culture in Waupaca. One of those goals was that was called Connecting the Arts Sector and the Community. And so there are lots of different tenets. I'm not going to read them all, but that's kind of what I'm speaking to right now. So there was this idea that the arts groups should all come together and start collaborating more. And believe it or not, we've done that, and we're pretty excited about it. And what we're called is the Waupaca Waupaca Arts and Culture Network. We've had like 4 different names. It's Waupaca Arts and Culture Network. And we've been meeting for probably 2 or 3 years, but this last year has been probably our more galvanizing sets of meetings. So a couple of the things that we've done, we did a premiere event in May where we invited this vast group of people that were all connected to the arts. We tried to get teachers. Peg was there from the library. We tried to get every organization that fed into the arts and culture plan and the goals that were set forth and bring them all together, and we had a really excellent event at Danes Hall. That's resulted in a huge increase in the use of the Chamber of Commerce Arts and Culture calendar, or the community calendar. They didn't calculate the percentage, but they were astounded by the number of people that are using it now. And we taught people how to enter their own information at this premier event. And Lynn Toll has reported that that's going really well. I don't remember if she gave us numbers, but anyway, that's one of the things that we've accomplished. We've also had some really great group discussions on collaboration. People are using the newsletter that our group puts out to be more of a dynamic, all city, all area arts and culture newsletter. We've discussed coming together as an arts network to be in the visitor's guide. So that would feed into the whole branding of the city of Waupaca, as well as, again, having us create this sort of arts destination for our town as part of our branding. And we've decided that we're going to have a representative from our network come and report to City Council regularly, and we've assigned different groups through December. So you'll be hearing more from the network from each different particular group. And again, we really thank you guys for supporting all of this work. We know that you have a lot on your plate, and you're making a lot of bigger decisions. I've been to enough meetings where I can't believe the amount of knowledge you have to have in all these different areas, whether it's parking or just alcohol licensing and everything in between, healthcare for all the employees. And then we come along and we know that we think we're so important, but we do recognize that you're putting a lot of support into what we do, and we really thank you for that. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcy. Steve?
Steve Ladke. I'm with the Waupaca Community Arts Board also. And I just want to speak to one of the manifestations of your support and of everybody working together is the Summer Nights concert series. And that's become a big success. This is our 4th year, and it's just incredible to see the number of people coming down to South Park and enjoying the beautiful setting that we have there, and beautiful shelter that the city has provided. I would personally like to thank Andrew Whitman for all his support and helping us put this on, and I really appreciate that effort on the city's part. And we have one more coming up next Wednesday, and I invite all of you to come down and see what the Summer Nights is all about. So thank you.
Thanks, Steve. All right, well, good luck. We're looking forward to a nice weekend. Next up then is public input. This is for non-agenda items. If there's any council members or staff or public that would like to speak to us on a non-agenda item, please give your name and address and list your discussion to 3 minutes or less. Dave?
I would just like to thank and commend the street department as well as Park and Rec and the parks and the trails for the cleanup they did after the storm. Tremendous. I go to a morning coffee club and they even get compliments down there. And that doesn't happen very often for city things. So it was very impressive. You can impress those guys.
Right?
Thank you and great job.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. Yeah, I think everybody echoes your statement there. Appreciate that. Any other public input? All right, let's go on to new business then. Justin Barron's, we have to deal with Granite Street.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I got a number of items in a row here. A lot of information will be thrown at you, so please, if you have questions, feel free to ask at any moment. First one, page 39 of your packet is my memo dealing with our lead service line replacement program. So I have to go back in the history a little bit. In 2017, we secured a safe drinking water fund from the Wisconsin DNR for lead pipe removal, and we secured $200,000, which would only pay for lead line replacement on private side. I'd like to refer you right away to page 45. It's a big poster, so you might have to zoom out a little bit. There's basically a quick overview of where lead could potentially be in our system and also within your homes. Now, this is for older homes. Anything prior to 1982 could possibly have lead in solders or even in fixtures. Out in the roadway, we have some lead when it connects the main to service line, so what we call is lead goosenecks, typically like a 2-foot section of lead. Back in the day, in the 40s, 50s, they like to use this because it was bendable. You know, it's a very bendable material, so it was easy to work with, so they used it a lot, and before they knew the health hazards. So within our system, we have several of these. We've identified certain streets that have it. Granite Street is one of them, so we're going to use this fund to remove those components. So it's a 2-foot section. It's less than 1% in our entire system. Regardless, we received the fund, and we expect to fully use it on this project. On Lake Street, we did the same thing. We used Cedar Corps of Green Bay to work through that program with us. They basically do all the contract administration, filling out the forms, do the bid advertisement, making sure everything is on the up and up as far as following all the federal standards because there's federal money associated with it. So basically, they handle everything, but it is 100% funded by the DNR, which is supplemented by the federal funds. So this goes hand in hand with the Granite Street reconstruction project, which I'll be talking about next. Here, I received just a proposal from Cedar Corp because they did the work on Lake Street. They have familiarity with us. They have the forms are all ready. Assumed it would be the most efficient way to handle it. And again, DNR would be paying for it through this fund. Their proposal can be seen starting on page 40. They're looking for $12,500 to complete that work, which would, like I said, take care of all the administration, bid advertisement to start working on getting the lead service lines removed on the private side of Granite Street from Harrison down to Maine. That's the quick and short 2-minute version.
So you're recommending to council that we enter into an agreement that it not exceed $12,500 for this design.
That's correct. And this money would be reimbursed by the DNR. We need to have this council action with our documentation in order to get that reimbursement.
All right. So you understand what he's requesting? Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Prochatsky, that the council awards Cedar Corporation of Green Bay the city's Granite Street lead service line replacement design service in an amount not to exceed $12,500.
Yes.
Understanding that it will be reimbursed.
That's correct.
Through the grant, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
So would this be considered a capital expenditure?
I don't believe so. We haven't budgeted for this. We received the funds from the DNR. So that is set aside, I believe, in a separate fund, which when we get those invoices from Cedar Corps, we basically will pay for them and then make a reimbursement request through the DNR. And I believe that's how it's handled. Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, that's the correct accounting.
Yeah.
So if for some reason we don't get DNR approval for this, we would not go forward with this?
We already have DNR
do already have
approval.
approval.
We received approval for the funding from Lake Street, so we have that. Now, to order to apply this to Granite Street, we just have to follow that process again, and we'll get the money back.
So it's an in and an out.
Yes, we used 80,000 on Lake Street, excuse me. We're expecting to use at least 100,000 to pay for the private side laterals on Granite Street, which will be reimbursed as long as we follow the same process as last time.
All right. Any other questions? Sandy will call the roll.
Steve Hackett. Scott Prochatsky.
Aye.
Mary Fair.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Eric Olson.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
And Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, I'll keep rolling. Page 46 is my memo for the actual roadway project of Granite Street from Harrison down to Maine. Probably the first thing to look at here is sheet 84 or 48, excuse me, showing the limits of the project. So in orange is Granite Street, Harrison to Maine. That's where we wanted to reconstruct the road, do some sidewalk replacements, some curb and gutter replacement, and then we're also looking at water main replacement at the same time, thus the memo from before, the action before. We threw in here the parking lot, which is shaded in green or highlighted in green. That was part of the original project to improve that, and part of the whole downtown project to improve that parking lot just for the downtown area. Hopefully people will start utilizing it more. In the yellow is the alleyways, and that's a little different of a story. We had that in the capital plan to replace, along with the design funding. With the capital planning last year, the design funds got cut, so we threw it into the Granite Street project as an alternate bid. So what I did is I sought proposals from 4 engineers or engineering firms that we've used in the past. I received all 4 back. The numbers are shown on the memo. Cedar Corp came up as the lowest, assuming that they're looking for efficiency gain from already being out there working on the lead service line. Had a number of conversations with their lead engineer to ensure that they have budgeted enough effort to properly design Granite Street, the parking lot, and the alleyways, and I have confidence that they will. So the project in total, so this is just the design. Once the design is done, we'll be seeking bids for contractors. We have budgeted $595,000 for Granite Street alone, plus the parking lot, excuse me, and $340,000 for those alleyways on the west side of Main Street. The intention of that was to improve those alleyways before Main Street because we're assuming it's going to be used as a local detour and a good way for businesses just to get to and from their shops as well. So the intention is to improve that before Main Street. Finally, we did get $50,000 from the county for, or through the local road improvement program. It's the largest one-time sum through the LRIP in Waupaca County, so we plan on using that to help pay for the Granite Street construction. So altogether, we have a pretty large project going on in Granite Street, the parking lot, and the alleyways. So for here, right now, I'm looking for award to Cedar Corporation again for the design services of Granite Street from Harrison to North Main, the parking lot on the corner of North Washington and Granite, and then also the alleyways on the west side of Main Street from Badger to Granite.
So again, Justin is asking us to approve the design for those streets and alleyways and parking lot that he has mentioned. We would need a motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion by Chestnut,
Second.
second by Martin, that the council awards Cedar Corporation of Green Bay the Granite Street Design Service Contract from North Harrison to North Main Street, parking lot design on North Washington Street and Granite Street, and then the alleyway design between West Badger Street and Granite Street.
Excuse me, Mayor. I found a typo. My request in my memo, I'm asking for $42,454. The total should be $48,329,000. That's shown on sheet 49. That's an actual Excel spreadsheet, so I must have a typo in there. So excuse me for that error.
That's not even transposing numbers there. Lori, are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Dimitri?
Yep.
Okay, so they're okay with that. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I assume that this is also a budgeted, or not also, because the other wasn't, but this is a budgeted capital expense, correct?
This is budgeted. We budgeted $50,000 for the design of Granite Street in the parking lot. And like I said, we threw the alleyway as an alternate in there to see if we can make it work. And it did. We got lucky on that.
Well, I'd just like to commend you on gathering all these bids, and there's a lot of work, I'm sure, that you put into gathering those.
Yep.
And it's important to me that you did that. It is the city ordinance to gather up to 3 bids when we're spending over $25,000 on a budgeted capital expense, and you've not only gotten 3, but you've gotten 4. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other discussion?
Justin, could you please give me the figures again, because I didn't quite get them.
Okay.
So-
$48,329. That's shown on that spreadsheet. And then also further down, let me find that page number for you. At the end of their proposal, on page 77. So that includes their design effort, plus some expenses for mileage. So $48,329.
Paul?
Yeah, can you take me through as far as redoing the alleyways? Are they going to be widening them? Are they just going to be just pulling them out and resurfacing? What are they going to be doing with the alley?
Well, we can't widen the alleys much
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
because of the building constraints. So the pavement will be replaced. The storm sewer that's back there is mostly inadequate, so that's going to have to be replaced to handle the water. And it's going to be kind of a tricky situation because 2 of those blocks are buildings on both sides, so we have to make sure we're getting that water out and out of there. So that's the big thing, is replacing the storm sewer and replacing the pavement.
Is any of that storm sewer going to be covered by Clean Water Fund or any other? That's strictly ours?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, anybody else have any questions, comments? Ready to vote?
Kathy?
Oh, I'm sorry, Kath.
I just want to let Alderman Hagan know that the reason we don't have the clean water or safe drinking water on these is because it's a lot of paperwork to get that small of amount, and we found out from the state that we should be going for those kind of grant monies when we're over $1 million for the project. So
Yeah, thank
that's
you.
why we weren't going for those grants.
Okay, anybody else? Sandy will call the roll.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
I
Steve Hackett, Eric Olson,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
and Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, Justin, you're still up?
The next one, page 84, is a memo on salt shed. So again, if you could please scroll down to page 86, you'll see a preliminary layout of our new facility on the Habercorn site. Whereas you drove north on Harding Street, you'd see a parking lot, the main building, in the back, a cold storage, and then in the current impound area, salt shed. So right now, we're looking to put that salt shed up. As we've had a number of discussions, the Waupaca County Highway Department is moving from downtown here out to County A. In the past, we've relied on their salt shed right on East Fulton here to get our salt to combat winter weather. So with them moving, that salt shed will no longer be available for our use. So we have two options of either trucking back and forth all the way out on A there, or constructing the salt shed on Habercorn now so we can utilize it, well, for the next 50 years. Speaking of the County Highway Department, they, with their new building, are putting up 3 salt sheds out there. One of them, their smallest one, is a sand-salt mixture, will be used for sand-salt mixture, and is nearly identical to the size of salt shed that we feel that we need. A picture of that salt shed is shown on sheet 90 or page 90. So that's nearly identical to the salt shed size that we need, we feel confident in. So talking with them, they used a company called Wheeler. They're basically an architect / designer. Wheeler basically was recommended by the Wisconsin DOT to the county because one of the salt sheds out there are going to be funded by Wisconsin DOT. Wisconsin DOT told the county, use Wheeler. So since that's like almost identical salt shed we want, and also recommended from both the county and the state, received just one quote from Wheeler for this project. What this request is getting us is basically the design and the material of the salt shed. So similar to if you were going to build a new home, you'd go to Torborg's or Nofke, get an architect, they would design it for you, they'd get your materials list, you'd get the contractors. This is a very similar process. They're going to design it, they're going to get us our materials for $104,000, then we take it out to bid to get a contractor. At the bottom of the memo here is the breakdown of our budget. We budgeted at $300,000. This request is seeking $104,480. We're assuming the construction is going to be about $157,000, grading $2,500, the doors about $15,000, electrical $5,000, and pavement $12,500. So you can see we're looking to be just under that $300,000. The salt shed, I guess, that we're looking at is a 1,000-ton salt shed. That's based on our past usage, future growth, and what we think is the right fit for us. And it just so happened that the county built one already that's going to be nearly identical to the one we built. So with that moving forward, it is only the one proposal sought, but felt it was the best option, and it's going to be the best cost and long-term for us to move forward with Wheeler for this design contract.
Okay, I understand what Justin's recommending to council. This would just be for the design. Anybody like to make a motion? You want to discuss it first? I mean,
I would like to say that Chapter 3, Section 5, Parent B says that for any budgeted or non-budgeted capital expenditures over $25,000, 3 quotes or written proposals shall be obtained through sealed bid process and shall be approved by the Common Council. So unless we're getting 3 bids, you're basically asking us to violate our own ordinance by approving this one with only 1 bid.
I don't have, there's another section in the ordinance, I don't have that readily available for me, that that can be foregone for several reasons. If they felt that there's basically an efficiency to go with just one, so such as savings with either time and money and quality, and that's the basis of this request. So
That's in capital, that's in chapter 5, chapter 3, section 5, parent A and parent C have those provisions, but it's just for capital expenditures between 10,000 and 25,000. Unless you're familiar with the different section.
not off the top of my head.
Okay, so here we are, and,
I
go
found
ahead.
it. City of Waupaca, Wisconsin Professional Services Procurement Policy. It's a Word document I had saved in my computer. I believe I found this from John Edelbeck's files. It is the intent of this document to establish a policy outlining a process that obtains the best value of professional services for the city at the least amount of cost. The process, as outlined below, will require city staff to select and recommend a firm and justify why that firm was selected, either by identifying value savings to the city, by selecting that firm, or by a process of comparing submitted proposals. It is understood that in some situations, it may be the most beneficial to the city to select a firm that has done previous work with the city or has an expertise in that field of work, while in other situations, it may be in the best interest of the city to request proposals from several firms for comparison. City staff, in selecting and recommending a firm for the procurement of professional services, i.e. consulting, engineering, architecture, accountant, realtor, appraising, planning, consultant, auditor, attorney, etc., shall consider the following items: previous work/services performed on similar projects with the city, previous work/services provided to the city in general, continuity of services being provided to the city, working relationships with firms' personnel, geographic proximity of firm to the city, expertise in requested field of work/services, project timetable, work service fees, dollar value of work, any other parameters that could provide value to the city. In recommending a professional service agreement by city staff to the common council or applicable boards/committees, city staff shall identify in writing the specific benefits that the city is expected to realize by the selection of that firm or firms and the method of selecting that firm.
So my question would go to Mr. Hart then. Does the prior director of Public Works have the ability to supersede city ordinances?
No. I think Alderman Martin is correct. A strict reading of that subsection 5 regarding capital outlays, a strict reading would call for 3 written proposals. I would comment that that section, as I read it, is somewhat poorly worded in that it does sort of approach this sole source purchase concept, which I think that this is probably one of those circumstances where perhaps the bidding process and a competitive bidding process might not be the best way of getting a design project completed. But a strict reading of the ordinances would require 3 written quotes or proposals through a sealed bid process.
Justin, was this something that was approved, I don't have it in front of me, by council?
This
that you
was,
have- That you had, that you were reading from?
I don't have a date on here.
But was it signed by anybody?
I just
came
have a
from-
Word document, yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Tom, are you recommend, or Attorney Hart, I'm sorry. Are you recommending that we not move on this tonight, or that there is the ability for the Public Works Director to make that decision? I guess I kind of,
Well, I guess I would the difficulty here is I'm not going to recommend action that would be contrary to the ordinances. So I think that without having these quotes here, that section B is not met.
Good. All right. So you're, unless a council member would like to make a motion in contrary to what our city attorney has suggested, I would say that we table this and bring it back for discussion, first of all, at staff level, and then bring it back to council at a meeting in the near future.
Mayor, what is the
Yes, go ahead.
time frame that we're looking at as not being able to use or the county shed? Is it this winter?
Yeah. They're moving out this fall.
So, and if we were to approve this, when would we have our salt shed by?
Pending approval tonight, we're looking at somewhere late August to late November, somewhere in there
Of this year?
of this year.
That's a consideration as far as I would be, in my opinion, as to the timeliness of this.
May I pipe in on that too? There's in section 3.05, the appropriations section under sub 2, it deals with emergency purchases over $2,500. So I don't know if that's a stretch, but it's there.
Okay. Council?
Justin, how long would it take to get additional bids?
Probably about 2-3 weeks.
So this would not be ready for council action again until September at the earliest?
September 3rd would be the next date to potentially target.
So it says everything back by a month.
That's correct.
Yeah, and that was my question. So we could get pushed into December if we push this?
Yeah.
So if we have an early winter, that could be an emergency situation, right?
Well, then we have to get our salt we'll get it from the Waupaca County Highway Department, but we'll be trucking across town to get it.
I do have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What deems an emergency then? Who decides that?
Tom, do you?
Well, the ordinance doesn't give any guidance on its face. I did a little reading about this issue, and I guess what the city is left with balancing is whether or not a competitive bidding process, which is designed to prevent favoritism or improvidence in the administration of public business, is balanced against providing the services that taxpayers are looking to receive. Again, I don't think that this procurement ordinance is worded the best because it does provide for sole source purchases. And I guess the question I would have for Mr. Behrens is whether or not opening this up for bids would even get comparative proposals.
We would expect 2 at most. This company and then one other. It was looked at very similar to the snowblower bid. We just did that for $146,000. We advertised that. We assumed we were going to get 2. The one company that here in Wisconsin didn't even bid on it. So I guess I wouldn't say this is the only company that can do it in the nation, but certainly we're looking at most two. In being that we're going to try to build the exact same salt shed that's already been designed and built at the county shop, assume that this was the most cost-efficient way to do it.
Yeah, Eric, I'm sorry.
Do you know if the county bidded?
Yes. No, they didn't. Actually, I take that back. I should not say that. What I do know is they wanted to use a different company, and the Wisconsin DOT recommended they use Wheeler, which is the company I'm recommending tonight. So they switched so that all three of their salt sheds would be designed by the same company and by the one that the DOT recommended.
I have one more question.
Yeah, go ahead.
What are the implications if I make a motion and can we vote on it if there's a second?
Absolutely.
Then I'd like to make a motion that we approve your proposal.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Olson, second by Keelan, that awards the design contract to Wheeler Lumber LLC for the design of the new salt shed for an amount not to exceed $104,480. Any further discussion?
I would like to hear what Kathy had to say. She's been kind of raising her hand, but hasn't said anything, so I want to get her.
One of the things the ordinance does not take into effect is that the state of Wisconsin has the ability for municipalities to piggyback on their contracts. Same thing with counties. And we also are in a consortium with, I believe, 172 other municipalities and school districts for joint purchasing so that we don't have to go through this. There's an approved purchasing group that's gone out with the specs that have done all the due diligence of getting proposals. And I think that that's one of the things that's missing from our ordinance, to be able to piggyback on other contracts, which would allow us to piggyback on the state's contract, which is what the county had to do. So I think that that's would be more of a recommendation that it's already some form of government has already done their due diligence in speccing out this building, which is the exact same building that we're going to be putting out, and this is the quote that they're so, and the state does go through that process.
I'd like to just comment on that. Our ordinances on Chapter 8, Section 3, Parent 1, Parent 1A, does give us the right to go into contracts without bidding, but only with the Waupaca County itself if it does the construction, not with contractors that they've necessarily approved. It has specifically with the county. The second comment I'd like to make is that if we pass this, then that says to our constituents that we don't have to follow our own ordinances, but you do. And I just think that that's the wrong process. I think it sets a bad precedent.
Any other comments? I think it's important that we understand here that somebody that is new to city council and that they're just reading the ordinances maybe doesn't have a full scope of the history of what's going on here. So maybe we need to look better at expressing ourselves a little bit more through the ordinances so that when people are reading them, they understand them. And I think this brings up a good point tonight, that if you were just reading the ordinance and not knowing the history of what we've done in the past, you would feel that you need to follow exactly what the ordinance say. With that said, I would also say to you, Mr. Martin, that in the future, I would appreciate, since you get the packet for the council meetings on Wednesday, and you have the rest of the week and the weekend to go over it, that you take the ability to contact the department head that you have a question with, either on Monday and Tuesday, to give them the ability to answer your question without having any knowledge of what your concerns are. And again, you're putting them in a spot that's not fair without them having the ability to research as much research as you felt that you have done. Any other comments? Sandy will call the roll.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
No.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
and Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 no, motion carried.
All right, Justin, keep moving.
Okay. Page 97, next memo, dealing with our wastewater treatment facility. This is aeration in blower upgrade. Once again, I'm going to direct you to another page. 103 is a picture of one of our aeration tanks at the treatment plant. You can see that the brown stuff there is what we're trying to treat and before we release it into the environment. The green pipes, that delivers air from a blower, which basically pushes the air underneath the water, and then it bubbles up. The air that comes through creates mixing, and then also supports basically biological bacteria that will then help us treat when they're just trying to live their normal lives. So this is an extremely important process in the wastewater field. That 30-second explanation does not do it justice at all. What we have done in the past, and again, direct your eyes to 104, is we have replaced some of our old blowers with a new one. Our plant upgrade from 1997 had installed 4 150 horsepower motor engines with these blowers on them. Today's standard, that's very large, oversized. We did a project in 2016, 2017. After one of our larger blowers failed, we replaced it with a smaller one, which uses a 50 horsepower blower. We use Focused on Energy, I guess the grant application there, and got a very good project out of it. They used it as a case study, and it created a very short payback on this blower. So with that success, we wanted to repeat that project again in the wastewater field. It's all about redundancy. You have to treat no matter what. So relying on just this one blower does not make sense. It can have issues. It needs repairs. We need to exercise other ones anyways. So we're looking to duplicate that project. So what we have done so far is in November 2018, Robert E. Lee completed an energy assessment on our wastewater treatment plant, which was 90% funded by Focus on Energy. So that was basically a $9,000 project where we paid less than $100. It was a very good report. What was identified in that report was replacing another blower as our #1 project for energy savings, or cost savings, energy savings. So again, what we did was we retained Robert E. Lee, since they had that previous knowledge, had done all the calculations and the work on that aeration blower and the rest of our plant, and had them do a preliminary study, which they had just finished up. And looking forward, now we need to move into the final step, which is design, which we need to basically create plan sheets, get our final calculations, provide those to the DNR for review, and then take that out to bid for a contractor. It's the same process we used with that blower shown in the picture. In that project, we used a different engineering firm. Well, that was in the past. I came on board at the very tail end of that. Here we're using a different engineering firm, and kind of, since we've just got done talking about it, looking that they're the best firm for the job. They have the familiarity with the plant, and they've done already half the work for this DNR submittal. We're looking at a proposal of just under 15,000. And again, we could go out to 3 bids, but just kind of assuming that this is the most efficient, most cost-effective route for the sewer utility. Go over the project budget, which is shown on 98 of the packet. It's a $180,000 project, which has already been approved through the capital project. $100,000 for construction. What that is basically mostly just the piping, replacing the piping in these tanks. The new blower itself, so that new little blower that's shown in that picture, we're assuming based on the last one, be about $40,000. Design was budgeted at $20,000, and then a contingency of $20,000, which is roughly 10%. So as you can see, the design budget is well intact. It's roughly a 2-year project, just like the last one. So we'll get started on the design and bidding this year. With any luck, we'll have it installed by December, maybe January, but probably not till next year.
Okay, so again, Justin is recommending that we enter into an agreement with Robert E. Lee for an amount not to exceed $14,985. Anybody want to make a motion?
So move.
Motion by Peterson, second by Hackett, that the council awards the design contract for aeration blower upgrade project to Robert E. Lee and Associates for an amount not to exceed $14,985.
This is being funded through the sewer department, sewer utility.
And this
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this is our enterprise fund, the sewer fund, so they are charged a fee for usage, yeah. Any discussion?
Is this a budgeted capital expense?
Yes, it is.
And again, we're violating our own ordinance if we don't get 3 written quotes.
Any other discussion? Sandy, call the roll.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Steve Hackett, Eric Olson,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
No.
and Alan Keeland.
Aye.
8 ayes, 1 no, motion carried.
You're still going.
All right, thanks, Mayor. Page 105 is a resolution. There is a new Wisconsin DNR grant out there for urban forestry, which has to do with disaster recovery. So this is separate to the next item, which I believe Kathy's going to go over. She might want to just have me keep going here, but so this is basically just a grant that we're seeking. Russ Montgomery is basically spearheading this because he is our tree guy. We're going around getting all the information of our trees lost, the effort to replace them, and just submitting that to the Wisconsin DNR. As part of that application process, we need to have this resolution approved by council authorizing that we go ahead and put in the effort to get this grant, and cross your fingers, knock on wood, hopefully we get some reimbursement.
All right, and you can see that resolution on page 105 of your packet. Anybody like to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Martin,
Second.
second by Chestnut, that we approve resolution number 1435, 2019. Discussion? Sandy, call the roll.
Steve Hackett. Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
Paul Hagan.
Aye.
Alan Keeland.
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky.
Aye.
Dave Peterson.
Aye.
Dimitri Martin.
Aye.
Mary Fair.
Aye.
And Eric Olson.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, next we have the disaster declaration, and Kathy, you put that together, so.
Correct. We had the opportunity to do a disaster declarations to be qualified for the state emergency funding. And with the amount of damage that has been done over the weekend and the power outages, the state and the county has now filed for FEMA reimbursement. We'll be in a Category A, which will allow us to get reimbursed not only for our overtime costs for clearing the brush and that, but also our regular time now. So based on the current estimates that we have about $40,000 worth of costs that we're going to be recouping, and it could be even higher. We did sustain some damage to our properties, and I have filed for insurance reimbursement, but we need this disaster. The mayor did declare the disaster declaration, which just needs to be confirmed by council.
Okay, again, that's on page 106. We actually have a signed copy of this already, but we need approval by council, so we'd look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Keelan, second by Chestnut, or Fair, I'm sorry. Fair that we approve of the disaster declaration. Discussion? Zandy will call a roll.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
and Steve Hackett. 9 ayes, motion carried.
Okay, we're on to a request to extend the airport operations agreement between the city of Waupaca and Plain Guys Aviation for another 3 years. Paul, are you
Yes.
handling that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Certainly. Current contract with Plain Guys Aviation allows for a 3-year extension. The airport board did meet, considered that, and voted to extend to exercise that option due to the excellent service and pricing that we receive with Plain Guys Aviation. And this needs to be confirmed by the council. So therefore, I would make that in the form of a motion.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Hagan, second by Martin, that we approve the agreement between Plain Guys Aviation to exercise the option to extend the contract for an additional 3 years. And this is between the city of Waupaca and Plain Guys Aviation. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Lori Chestnut,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
and Steve Hackett.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, I know Beth is in the audience. Beth, thank you for continuing your service to the city. You do a good job for us, an excellent job for us, actually. Paul, you still have another item on here, dealing with the runway?
Yeah, was that going to be addressed tonight or no?
Yes, I just didn't have a time to do a memo today.
So you're just going to verbally?
I'm verbally going to
Okay.
walk it through. The request is to start the design project for the reconstruction of runway 1331. Based on the Board of Aeronautics budget, they've moved that project up. Now, this is just the design of the reconstruction of the runway. The design cost, and this is a state-led project, so we don't have any bidding that we're doing. This is all done by the state. It's an $80,000 contract based on the last budget that I had. The city's share of that is only $4,000. So what we would do is put that in the capital budget. By the time that we would have to expend that money out with the state, we'll put it in the 2020 budget. This is in place of going for the snow removal equipment, which will also have, I believe it's going to be in, we just missed the window for purchasing that. That'll also go into the 2020 budget. And that, again, is probably only $20,000 for $400,000 worth of snow removal equipment for the airport. So it pays to continue to take advantage of the federal and state money that's with these projects.
Okay, so you are requesting that we agree to, for the design of the reconstruction of 1331 at an amount not to exceed $4,000.
Correct.
Is that accurate? Okay. Anybody like to make a motion?
Well, one thing to add is
Oh,
that
sorry.
the BOA has declared that runway next year. What's the exact word?
It's basically failed.
Okay, well,
It doesn't
okay.
mean it failed, but they're saying that the construction of the runway is so bad.
Would you step up to the
Sorry.
microphone?
I am Beth from the airport. So when Mike Gabor was our BOA person, he had they looked at the asphalt of the 3113 runways, and they basically said the runways are going to be bad enough that they, in parentheses, fail it. It's not that they're going to not let us use it or anything, but then the possibility of the asphalt that comes up and everything could start possibly causing damage to planes and everything else. And when we actually broom during the winter, there's more asphalt on the side. It seems like it's a lot of black on the sides of the runway than on top of it. So it's definitely time with the amount of stuff we put on it. It's definitely time for reconstruction. On top of that, if I might add, BOA came out and did another assessment of the trees that on the properties around the airport, and there are trees that need to come down. So they did said if we start this process going, that we'll probably be able to do that tree removal in this project along with the runway. So that'll take care of us getting FAA on us about getting those trees down sooner or later. They'll be able to give us a little bit of an extension to get rid of those trees too. So it's definitely something that has to be done or addressed. So thank you.
Okay.
So, and I would like to make that a motion that we approve the start design project for reconstruction of runway 1331.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Hagan, second by Olson, for the design of 1331 at a city cost not to exceed $4,000. Any discussion? Sandy will call the roll.
Mary Fair,
Aye.
Alan Keeland,
Aye.
Eric Olson,
Aye.
Scott Perchatsky,
Aye.
Steve Hackett,
Aye.
Paul Hagan,
Aye.
Dimitri Martin,
Aye.
Dave Peterson,
Aye.
and Lori Chestnut.
Aye.
9 ayes, motion carried.
All right, thank you, Paul.
You're welcome.
Next up, we have license report 1456. This is the operator's license that we seem to see on a monthly basis. You can see the list of those individuals on page 116. We'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Hackett, second by Chestnut, that we approve license report 1456. These are operator's license pending background checks and payment of any fines owed to the city. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. All right, next up, as promised at the last meeting, we would try to find somebody that has some experience and some expertise in ATV and UTV uses on towns and city roads. So Lori was nice enough to forward Gene Goody's name to me, and we had a discussion, and instead of Gene making a presentation to the mayor and the city staff and then have to do it again at the council level, we just asked him to come to the council. So we're all seeing it for the first time tonight. So Gene, welcome. If you could, just give your name.
Thank you, Mayor. Gene Goody, I'm the president of Northeast and Central Wisconsin ATV Association. We represent Waupaca, Winnebago, Waushara, Portage, Shawano counties, and the greater Fox Valley area. Our goal is to bring recreational and commerce opportunity to this area in Wisconsin. I just want to disclose that I'm not a lawyer, and there are many legal different interpretations of state law. So again, always consult with your lawyer for his legal opinion. I just want to disclose that. Having said that, I have helped over 50 municipalities adopt and get ATV and UTV ordinances together. Currently in the state of Wisconsin, there are nearly 400,000 ATV and UTV registrations, and they're outpacing snowmobiles in the state of Wisconsin. So this recreation and this issue is going to face us sooner or later, and I think it's sooner because in this area, many communities are opening up routes now. Ultimately, our goal would be to get an off-road trail system to this area. As you may or may not know, we have all kinds of county land and also state lands that aren't utilized today, and that's ultimately our goal. In Wisconsin, there's 4 legal methods now that you can legally operate an ATV or UTV on the roadway without you doing anything today. The first method is if you're a farmer and you use it as an implement of husbandry, you can operate an ATV for hauling equipment and supplies from farm to farm, and if that may be through your city or community, they can legally do that. The second way a citizen in your community now could operate an ATV or UTV is if they are disabled and hold a Class A or B disabled permit. Basically, if I live in the city of Waupaca and I have hunting land in the town of Farmington and I have one of those permits, I can leave my residence to go to and from my house with the most safe and direct manner now if I have those permits. That's under Wisconsin law. The third method right now, without the city doing anything, from October to April of each year with a speed limit of 45 miles per hour or less, you can use your ATV or UTV to plow snow. You do have to have a rotating amber light if you do that. And then the fourth method, which is why I'm here tonight, you have a legal right to open up any street in your city as an ATV route. The difference between a route and a trail, that means a road. A trail is an off-road trail, basically. That's a legal distinction. You can also, with recent law changes, you have complete authority on any road 35 miles per hour or less, state, county, or whatnot, if you want that as part of your route system. You can also apply for permits through the DOT if you need a certain segment of roadway to connect the trails. I'm not sure where you're at in your community with this topic. What we recommend doing is just adopting state law. Our state legislature debated this over 20 years ago. They came up with good rules and regulations. And if you do that, any law enforcement agency can enforce that law. The sheriff, state patrol, DNR, and obviously your local police department can do that as well. When you start adding more specific different regulations, then it's a local city ordinance violation, and your city has to prosecute those violations. We recommend trying just to adopt state law for the sport itself. If I'm traveling from the township of Farmington into the city of Waupaca and we have 2 different rules and regulations, that's just confusing to the operator. So we always ask that you first try just adopting state law. You can always change your ordinance if there's problems or issues. It keeps everyone on a consistent basis. Having said that, 2333 is the state statute that covers it. This is considered a recreation. It's not a motor vehicle. It's not a car. It's a recreation. It's like a snowmobile, or if you're on water, a boat. And the only state traffic laws that apply to this recreation would be 34602, parent 11. That there's a whole bunch of state laws that say an operator of an ATV or UTV has to comply with. Also under 2333, parent 11, it says where the state of Wisconsin spoke on a topic, you have to be in strict conformity with that section. And it's my understanding and other legal opinion from town lawyers. Example, if the state of Wisconsin says all that's needed to operate an ATV or UTV on a route is anyone born after January 1st of 1988, a state certificate to operate, that's all that's needed. You cannot be more restrictive when they spoke on that topic. So please keep that in mind. Obviously, consult with your city lawyer. He may have a different opinion, but that's what we're finding out through the given these presentations and talking to lawyers and so forth. Basically, some cities have concerns with people are going to use this as a method of operating, perhaps without a driver's license, or they're revoked, or to skirt OWI laws, or to basically not because a driver's license it doesn't affect. I just want to keep in mind that already in the state of Wisconsin, we already have people in 2018, 80,000 people operating while suspended. 65,000 people are driving around in the state that are convicted, no insurance. 28,000 operating without a driver's license, 24,000 OWI, and 14,000 people are convicted last year of operating without operating after revocation. So my point with that is, I don't think that someone's going to, they're doing it with a motor vehicle to begin with. I don't think that this is, I don't think too many people are going to go out and buy a $17,000 UTV just to go from point A to point B without a driver's license. That's my point with it. Because in some communities, that was a concern. Signage, there's many ways you can do it. If you do open any roads or streets as route, 2333-8 directs what's required for signage. I don't want to take too much of your time, so if I'm babbling, so to speak, let me know. If you want to start asking questions, feel free to do so. If there's any concerns, feel free to ask me and I can try to address that.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
How old do you have to be to operate an ATV or UTV?
A UTV is 16 years of age and with a certificate for the purpose of recreation route. Now, there's other restrictions if they're using it for different things, and such as if they're operating for the purpose of hunting, there's different regulations than if they're required for using it for recreation. So it varies as a general rule of thumb. Safety certificate is required for the use of an ATV and UTV, and the ages of 12 through 15, you have to be with an adult if you're on a route. Now, if you're on, the helmet law is a little different depending on what activity you're engaged in. So I don't know if that makes sense, but there's different rules or regulations per se.
Okay, my second question is, I'm maybe the only one who doesn't know this. What's the difference between an ATV and a UTV?
An ATV is it's either a three-wheeled vehicle or a four-wheeled vehicle designed for a single person to operate it that straddles over the top. A UTV is more like a small Jeep, basically. It has seatbelts in it, a roll bar, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And they have to, the state 2333, it has all the helmet laws, all the age restrictions. The state of Wisconsin already did their homework, so you don't necessarily have to, per se, of adding additional rules, per se, for the issue of safety.
If we, you talked about signage, if you want to just limit it to the number of, to a street or a number of streets throughout the community and setting those up as routes. And you also talked about, of course, adopting state law. Which one comes first? Do we look at what we feel would be the proper routes to the city before we adopt the state law? Or if we adopt the state law and have no signage up there, still not able to drive through the city?
I'm not sure what your community actually wants. We present to open up everything, and then if you don't want something, we ask to put it on the agenda the following month and close that segment off, because then you have to put a sign up. If you opened up everything that you legally can, like you can't on Fulton Street per se, because the speed limit's 40 and that's State Highway 49. So is that correct, the speed limit there? So you can't legally open that up unless DOT would give you permission. So that kind of weeds out that area to begin with, and you wouldn't necessarily have to put up signs there. It all depends what you want. I would imagine you'd want it to go to your businesses for gas. You'd want it for lodging. We're working in Portage County too, and there's a lot of support over in western Portage County, where we actually have landowners that'll say, hey, use our property for a trail, and there's an old railroad bed perhaps. So it's not unforeseeable where someone might come to Waupaca, stay here for the weekend at a hotel, and leave the hotel and drive into Portage County someday and recreate. It all depends. You can make a preferred route where you could take a look at the map. If someone's coming from the township of Lind and you want them to go a certain direction, then you would just mark that per se. It all depends. I'm not a big fan of all kinds of signs. The state legislature changed that. I believe if you opened up everything, it's optional to put up signs at each entrance because the statute says may. The DNR disagrees with me on that interpretation of the law, but I do have a town attorney that agrees with me on that. So there again, the legislative intent when it changed a couple of years ago in April of 2018 was to reduce signage because they do clutter city streets and communities. So it all depends what you're looking at to open up. A lot of citizens, example, if I live a block down from the roadway and I want to go ice fishing in your city, a lot of people would like that flexibility to hop on their ATV or UTV, throw their gear in, and go out and recreate or ice fish. Or there may be a citizen in your community that just has hunting land a mile or two down the road. They'd like to, rather than loading it up and trailering it, to do that legally, which they can now under certain conditions. And with the ordinance that we present, you have complete control. If there's any problems, you can put it right on. If a citizen A comes in and says, I don't want my street a route anymore, fine. Put it on the agenda. Street A is no longer a route. You put up 2 signs to prohibit people from going down that road, and it just stays consistent. I don't think if you opened up the streets as routes, I don't think at first you're going to have hundreds of people coming into the city of Waupaca. It's just primarily to make it legal per se and make it a little easier on people to access their property or perhaps go down to the gas station, get gas. They're fun sports. Some communities now, I'm on the record saying you couldn't do it with a golf cart. Well, that was based upon 2012 research I did. The laws changed. You can even open up your streets in the city now to golf carts if you wish. That's your choice. 25 miles per hour or less. And the city of Appleton is actually considering doing that, and a lot of your larger cities are. It just makes sense. I mean, they're electric vehicles. To me, they're no different than a bicycle per se. You have a speed limit. You have good state regulations to begin with. And what I'd like to say is I'm 50 years old, and I think now in my life I'm a pretty responsible individual. I'm not the ones, we're not out there to raise canes, so to speak. I know maybe Mr. Peterson might disagree with me years ago, but he used to teach me, so.
Yeah.
Fine young man.
Those records are sealed, right?
Both ways. How do you address, Gene, I'm sure other communities are in the same situation that we are. You talked about being able to get to the hotels, being able to get to the service station, the gas stations, and so on. Most of our hotels, if not all of our hotels, are on a highway, a state highway. So you talked about people that would stay at a hotel and drop right at the hotel and take off from there. They would not be able to do that.
Well, take example over by the truck stop there. They would be able to over there. Right now, the town of Farmington, they have all their county roads and town roads as routes, as well as Dayton. So in theory, they could leave that area and go down Double Q and go out that way into Portage County or whatnot.
So you can cross a highway, but you can't
Absolutely. You can even cross US Highway 10 now, just like a snowmobile, as long as you have a route from as long as the route intersects with that roadway, that's a legal route. Same with State 49. State 49, which I believe is Harrison Street to the north, I think that speed limit is 25. You have complete control over that street. DOT has no say over that because it's a 35 mile per hour or less stop sign. Also, any bridge 1,000 feet or less, you can make that a route even on the state highway. I live in the village of Fremont. Highway 110, the Wolf River, is a route. You cross the bridge. It's a 4-lane highway. That is up to the village of Fremont. DOT cannot prohibit it. That law was changed, and that was 2018 they changed that. Again, we want to do this responsible. We don't want, safety is a primary concern. As a matter of fact, our association wants to address any of those issues. We want to attend our quarterly highway safety committee meetings. So if we are having problems in a community, we don't want accidents and we don't want fatalities. So we do want to be proactive and address anything that happens. And if there's a bad situation or whatnot, well, we can shut that down or whatnot. But I really don't think, with the thing with ATVs is, under state law, you cannot have residential access. And like with a snowmobile, you can. So I don't know what your snowmobile ordinances are, but if you wanted to, you could say any citizen can hop on their snowmobile from their house and go to the nearest trail. You can make an ordinance doing that. With the state laws on ATVs and UTVs, you can't. So that's why we say try opening up everything at first. It's the simplest. And if you come up with a list of streets later that you want shut off, put it on the agenda. I can show you the ordinance that we present, and then shut that segment down. You cross it off the map and post that street. As far as the police department, I know the sheriff's department, we have an ATV patrol in our county, and the sheriff is committed to putting that patrol out and be proactive addressing any type of violations and whatnot. We don't want it to become a burden on the local police department.
Justin, did you have a comment, or? I thought I saw your hand. Okay.
He answered it.
Okay. So are you seeing that, I mean, this is fairly new, obviously, with the golf carts too, so the golf carts are the same rules as the UTVs and the ATVs, or is that a?
Completely separate. I can give you that state statute if I look for it here.
You don't have to now. You
Okay.
can send it to us. Or
Yeah, it's completely different. I think you have more latitude on the golf cart rules and regulations than you would an ATV or UTV.
Okay.
ATVs have to have lights on at all times, both brake lights, stop lights, and headlights. They do not have to have turn signals, but they do have to use their hand signals according to state law. Some people do put them on there, so that is an option.
And you talked about a sample ordinance, so you actually have a sample ordinance that's been used in other?
I do, and I can present that to the city. I have copies here, or any members of the public that would like to see what we're doing. Our biggest, and we're working with our state legislature. I met with Luther Olson, I think it was 2 years ago. Kevin Peterson were in contact, because what we're finding out across the state of Wisconsin is there's so many different rules and regulations. People want to comply with the law, but it's very difficult to do that when it varies from road to road. And then also the issue too is, and maybe this would be a good question for your legal counsel, on on a road that is shared between two jurisdictions, what's the law? Who has the complete authority? Is it just a one-way route if one municipality wants it and the other one does not? Those are some of the problems we're running into. Some communities feel it's maintenance agreements. Other lawyers have said no. If it's in your municipality, you have 100% control over that. But again, there's a lot of different. I attended the Wisconsin ATV Association meeting by watching it online this spring. Even different DNR officials and state DOT representatives have different interpretations of signage and other minor issues, and there's still not clear issues on a lot of that. My recommendation is if you do open something up, you sign it what you believe you're in compliance with, which should be the Natural Resource Code and state law. And if for some reason another organization, meaning the DNR, would say, hey, you have to do this, I've been telling municipalities they can respond in two ways: do what they say, or respond back kindly and say, we believe we are in compliance with state law.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
You had said in your opening that that people are able to, in certain classes at this time already, to operate. And then you had said that, suggested that we adopt state law. Okay, so I'm kind of confused as if they are already able to operate under those certain circumstances. Why would we have a desire to adopt the state law if it's already there?
That is just one option now if you do nothing. Right now, those individuals can legally operate whether you do anything or not. What you're trying to do is give the rest of us who are not in that category the ability to operate legally on the roadway as a route. Does that make sense?
By adopting state law, we're opening up the opportunity, if we should so choose, to operate, to open up other areas. Is that what you're saying?
Not other areas, other citizens.
Other citizens.
Because if let's say I hurt my back and I get a class, I think it's a B permit, the DNR does not, and they don't expect me to have to load up my ATV or UTV on a trailer if you're partially disabled or permanently disabled. They want to give those individuals the opportunity to hunt and do whatever is in that permit now. So right now, if that citizen lives in your community, they can do it now. Does that make sense?
I was just trying to get at what the advantage or what we are changing if we were to adopt state law, as you suggested.
I guess if I understand your question correctly, is what you're doing is opening the Fourth Avenue by creating an ordinance to allow others.
That helps. Thank you.
Yep.
I understand now.
And and that's another thing too. If I hold that disabled permit, I can do it now anyways. I believe that I just have to follow state law regarding that.
Okay.
So it might confuse the public. This disabled individual's driving down the road, one set of rules, and then someone else with a different set of rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? My question for you, council, is you've listened to the presentation. Is this something that you would like to consider or pursue in the future? Obviously, we're not going to vote on it tonight. We haven't seen the ordinance. We haven't had the city's attorney ability to look at that either, but I don't want to waste anybody else's time if we're not interested in moving forward. So
Has there been a lot of interest shown by our constituents for doing this?
Yes.
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 I've not heard
absolutely.
anything.
Yeah.
I've never heard anything either.
Yeah, I have.
I think I'd like to see the state law, and if that can be shared electronically, and what would be the model ordinance, and then take that up at a future session.
yeah, if you want to, you could just hand it to Attorney Hart there, and he can.
That's what we've presenting to most communities. And then also, just for the record, Reedsburg, Wisconsin, which is a population of over 9,000, they've opened up a majority of their streets. So there are communities that are doing it and giving it a try. So
I have a question. Is there, or have some communities done like a survey of their community? Is this something you want in your city, or have they? I guess that's the end of my question.
yes, some people, some communities create an ordinance, they hold one meeting and adopt it the very following next month. The record is the town of Poygan in Winnebago County. They held 38 meetings on it. I quit after 10. So it varies. Some communities send out surveys. The only thing I would not suggest doing that without at least hearing a presentation on the topic, so they know so they know more information. It would be fundamentally unfair per se to say, well, no, I don't want this if I don't quite understand what's all involved. But you can, that's your option, and some communities have done that.
Scott, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We've treaded down this survey route before on other things, and I agree with our speaker there that we would have to educate every citizen here, make them come to this meeting to know, because they'll think we're going to be, hooligans will be ramming around, making noise up and down the street. I think as a tourist destination, we promote ourselves to.
Are you
this,
calling
I think,
me
is
a
an
hooligan?
Well, you know what I mean. People that aren't familiar with UTVs, they'll say, no, I don't want them on my streets. Well, I think to promote our city as a tourist attraction we are, I think if these trails start becoming more prevalent, which I spoke to some fellow that was out in the western part of the United States, and he says there's many trails out there, and cities actually hold UTV festivals, and they attract a lot of people to come into their city and spend money. So I think it would be wise to really consider this and put it on our agenda for an ordinance, because I think it's an up and coming thing that would gain us some tourist dollars.
Okay, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong here, but if we move forward with a sample ordinance, what we would do is we would have the city attorney draft the ordinance. We would have a public hearing on that. We're required to have a public hearing. When we have ordinances changes or new ordinances, we would have a first reading, which would be at one of the city council meetings, and then we would then either pass it or not pass it at the second meeting. So public would have the ability to speak, because they would be able to come to the public hearing. Plus, once it's presented to the council with the first reading, the public would also have the ability to contact either an alderperson or city hall to discuss that. So I think
that's the proper way, I think, instead of
and
unless you put it on a referendum or something, then it's a different story.
The only question I would have, this model ordinance starts out with all city streets, roads, sidewalk, and alleyways, and I just don't know if from a public safety standpoint there needs to be some look at routes, or what if the police department wants to have some input as to what routes should be appropriate or not appropriate, or.
I like Gene's comment too, and I don't disagree with you too, but I like Gene's comment too, is that when he said, if you open it up, you're gonna find out where the problem areas are. But if you can avoid those problem areas, that would be great. And I would fully expect that we would have the police department and our public works department participate in the spelling out of the ordinance.
And feel free on that to cross out what you like. The reason I included sidewalks in there, I would have to, I know the reason I put that in, there's someplace in 2333, it discusses that topic, so, and I can't answer that question, but it's not where you can just, I'm not sure if it's so you can plow on this, I'm guessing right now, but there is a reason why it's in there. Same with bridges 1,000 feet or less, even if it doesn't apply. Waupaca County has opened up all their county roads as routes, so if there's any bridges, they've adopted a blanket approach. They're leaving it up to each municipality. So again, I took that primarily from the DNR's website and what other communities have been doing.
I know you said you're not an attorney, but let me ask you this question then. You said the county opened it up. We do have, I think, only one county highway that actually goes through the city. Who enforces that? I mean, is it the county or the city? Are people allowed to go on the county highways through the city right now then?
I would have to say no based upon the county's ordinance. However, you have complete authority if it's a 25-mile-per-hour highway or less, 35 or less. The county no longer has say-so.
Okay. All right. Lori.
Okay, so the township of Lynn, Farmington, Dayton,
have already come forward. Has Waupaca?
I've heard the town of Waupaca may be considering it. If you don't mind, so far we have Dayton, Farmington, Lind, Royalton. On the south side of the county, there's Waupaca, town of Fremont, Caledonia, Makwa. They're still considering it. Pretty much everything north is pretty much open. We're finding we're not having the problems in the areas. Our association has contacted leaders to find out if there is, because we do want to address it and stay on top. As a matter of fact, one supervisor from the town of Farmington went out and bought a brand new unit and now enjoys using it. Another thing too, I mean, you could have an ATV, UTV business here in the city of Waupaca, which I would like to see. Every unit that is sold, that's probably $600 to $800 in sales tax. I mean, that's good for the economy, in my opinion. And obviously, we get those dollars back from the state. So, again, if you would like me to present it to the public, I'm always more than welcome to do that. Feel free to invite me back. Or if you have any questions, I can leave you my contact info, and feel free to, I can email you it as well. And if the police department or street department has any issues, feel free to contact me as well.
I got one question. Clarify, if we open it to all roads, we need to have a sign at every entrance of the city?
State law says if you do that, the Department of Natural Resources cannot require any additional further ones. The Natural Resource Code, I would have to look up the exact number. I can if you want me to, but basically it says you can still sign according to that, or you can sign with a preferred route method, where basically if you live on a side street, you don't post that as a route. It is still a route, but you would say that we want the main people to go through this and then mark that. So we're not cluttering that's one benefit. If you open certain ones, then you have to, there's more signs. I mean, that's why I recommend it. I don't like signs. I think it clutters a community.
Have you seen ordinances drafted that exclude certain areas rather than?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
In your opinion, are those any less or more workable or desirable? Or?
We're finding that a lot of people, if you do it, they'll say, well, how come my street's not a route? Now I have to trailer it a quarter mile to get to here? I can't do it. So that's why we're taking the approach, the more liberal approach, basically saying, open it all up and then shut it, or exclude the areas you really don't, or if someone complains or really doesn't want it, then post it. Less signs, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if the city attorney would like to, I can meet with them too to go over some issues. I'm more than willing to help out anyone on the topic.
I think, Kathy, this would be a perfect topic to invite Gene and the city attorney to one of your DRT meetings. And yeah, absolutely.
May I ask how many council members own or operate ATVs or UTVs? Okay.
Is it just me?
Yeah, apparently.
I have a family
It'll
who's
be
full
more
of
if we
them.
open it up.
Okay. Well, that will happen, and that's good for the economy, in my opinion.
Mayor, I believe last meeting when this topic first was brought forward, there was a bunch of sample ordinances from other cities. I think in our packet we could maybe look at too. I can't remember if it was Green Bay or Rhinelander and such. So
sure,
maybe you could go back to the minutes, look at some of those.
All right.
Do you want me to resend them? I can.
No, I think he's talking about using them for the.
No, I think they're using them as
Okay.
maybe it's a little different. You could pick things out or just.
It's the July 16th packet.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, that's what.
Anything else? So we will at least draft a ordinance, and then we'll discuss it with a public hearing at a near future meeting. Okay, anything else on the topic? All right, thank you. Gene, thank you very much for attending, appreciate it. All right, communications, recommendations of the mayor. I want to remind you that there is a special city council meeting next next Tuesday, which is August 13th. We'll start at 6 o'clock. You did receive the agenda via email today. It was in the agenda, and that's all you'll receive before the meeting. The idea of the meeting is to recommend an individual as our new city administrator. So we will be going into closed session for part of the meeting to discuss the individual's qualifications and give council members the ability to ask questions. And then after that, once we go into open session, I would be looking for approval of the council on this individual. Okay, so don't forget, mark it on your calendar, August 13th, 6 p.m. All right, we're ready to adjourn. Motion by Hagan.
Second.
Second by Keelan that we adjourn till our next regular scheduled council meeting, August 20th, 2019, subject to call, and I already gave you a subject to call. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Against, motion carried. Have a great night. We are adjourned at 7:48 p.m.